We collected a whole bunch of information. We asked students what department they were in, whether they were grad, undergrad, what their interests were, and who their friends were. And here you see a sample profile from Caroline. We also asked them a whole bunch of questions about their personality. For instance, we asked them the 3 most important attributes that describe them. So we gave them the list of attributes given on the left-hand side, and we told them to pick 3 and only 3 of those. Now, if you look at this graph, you'll see the differences between graduate and undergraduate students. For instance, if you look at being intelligent, most of the graduate students said that they were intelligent, which was like 40% compared to only 30% undergraduates. If you look at grad students, they also consider themselves to be like more responsible compared to undergraduate students. And undergraduates said they were more funny, fun, and also unique. We also asked them what they looked for in a romantic relationship, and we gave them the set of attributes given on the left-hand side, and we asked them to pick 3 and only 3 attributes. And if you look at the comparison between graduate and undergraduate students, you see that for graduate students, they look more for like common interests, 30% compared to 25%, whereas undergraduates looked for laughter, which was 50% compared to 35%. One of the really surprising and funny facts is how important sex was in the romantic relationship. For graduate students, it was almost like 25%, whereas for undergraduate, it was only 10%. Next, we did a little bit more data mining and tried to find correlation between attributes. For instance, are people who are considering themselves to be funny also liking comedy movies? So if you look at the data, there were 518 users who said they were funny. And 74% of all the users like comedy. Had there been no correlation, you would expect that 74% of the funny users would like comedy. But it turns out this ratio is 80%, and there's a statistical correlation, meaning if you consider yourself to be funny, you are more likely to be into comedy movies. Let's look at a couple of more associations. People who said they were creative like to read art books. They like to listen to folk and jazz music. They also like art, documentary, independent movies. Students who consider themselves to be successful like to read books about business. They like playing tennis. They go weightlifting. And during their free time, they like to fulfill chores. If you look at the user base who did not pick responsible as one of the 3 most important things that they describe themselves, you see that they like to read books about sex, they like to listen to music that's like funk, jungle, and they also really like skateboarding. Let's look at major and personality and how those things correlate. On the left-hand side, you see what percentage of the users picked one trait. And on the right-hand side, you see the percentages for the different majors. For instance, 26% of the users said reading was one of the most important things they did during their free time. And the percentage was more than twice for English majors who spend a lot of time reading. If you look at being intelligent, philosophy and computer science students said they were more intelligent. If you look at being creative, the average was 22%. But product design and English majors said they were more creative. If you look at being sex or attractive, 8% of users picked that as one of the most major traits. And that was 18% for English majors, more than twice. And it was only 2% for electrical engineering majors, which is a quarter. Next, we tried to see if there was a correlation between your friends and the attributes you have. For instance, if I like to watch horror movies, or if I'm into skateboarding, does it mean that my friends have the similar type of taste? If I'm into chocolate, does it mean my friends also like chocolate? So what we did was we computed what we call the association ratio. We picked an attribute like A, And we looked at the probability of a user having A. Then we looked at all the users who had that attribute and computed the probability of their friends having that attribute. If you do the division, you come up with a ratio that we call association ratio, and that basically tells you how much the correlation is. For instance, let's say I like heavy metal music. If the association ratio is more than 1, that means that most of my friends are also likely to like heavy metal. If it's less than 1, that means there's a low association or correlation.